Hi, I want to talk to you for a couple minutes today about developmental editing because a lot of people don't seem to understand what it is, and people do it differently. So, I'm a developmental editor. So, I wanted to share with you why you might want that service, the value of it. And again, people do it differently. So, I'm pretty much talking about me, but I don't mean this to be an ad. I want you to just understand the benefits of having another set of eyes on a manuscript and what a developmental editor does. So, developmental editing is also sometimes called structural editing. I think that's a regional difference. I think maybe on the East Coast, I'm in the Midwest, I'm in the Chicago area, and we call it developmental editing. And it sounds like the name sounds like what it is. You're helping the author to develop a manuscript. It may be a first draft, second draft, getting another set of educated eyes on it. I know people use beta readers. To be honest, I'm not totally clear about what that is. I know it can just be people reading it and saying, yeah, I like it, I don't, I had a trouble here. Developmental editing, to my understanding, is that it's a lot more involved and you get deeper, more useful information perhaps. Okay, so what I do is very often, um, uh, when I get it, I'm going to call it a story, okay? And it's fiction or non, it's short or long, manuscript, novel length, memoir length, book length, or short, it doesn't matter. So it's story, you're telling a story. And very often, when I get a manuscript, I find that the story begins really further on than the author thought. So we often build scaffolding at the beginning when we're writing, and we need that to hang on to, backstory and just stuff that helps us then to propel forward into the story. But then that needs to be removed and either woven into the story, or sometimes I found that it's already in there and you can just cut this away. So that's one of my strengths, is to help writers see where the story actually begins. I mean, and sometimes in the case of novels, it could be the second chapter, the third chapter. And in short stories, it can be, like 3 pages in. This is where it starts. Again, it doesn't mean necessarily trash everything else, but just put it in there differently. So that's one of the things that I help writers do, is find out where the story starts. And then we look at the elements of story. They're very similar in fiction and nonfiction. So starting with setting. Is the story set somewhere, or is it just kind of floating around in space? It doesn't mean it has to be an actual place, but is there a sense of place? And then I look at characters. Are they fully developed? Or are they kind of stick figures that are just there to advance the plot? And so some people write action stories, and so there's going to be maybe more action than character development. And some people, more literary stories, are more character driven, but in either case, you don't want stick figures. So look at your characters and maybe make suggestions about how you might develop them more fully so that people are more invested in reading about them. And then let me look at my notes. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Oh, time. So how you handle time, summary versus scene. And very often writers have too much summary of what things are happening. We need scene, where we're actually in a time and a place, a specific time and place, with characters doing things that we as the reader are sitting and watching. So think of a film. Film is done in scene. TV programs, are done in scene. So, but you need some summary. The whole thing isn't going to be seen. I mean, you're not writing a play, right? So how much summary? Where do you use summary? And where do you use scene? And how do you decide? And then similar to that is dialogue. Are you using summary dialogue? She told me that blah, 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 or she said, quote, that's direct dialogue. So how do you decide? And sometimes work, especially new writers, can have way too much dialogue. Again, it's not a play. If it goes on for pages, well, wait a minute. What of this do we need, and what can be collapsed into summary? So that's something else to look about. This is all about to look at. And this is all about shaping your work so that it's more clear and powerful and moves forward. And it's not about fixing it. It's never about fixing it because your work is not broken. It's about developing it and shaping it and making it more powerful and more beautiful and more coherent. And so your relationship with the developmental editor should be a partnership, should be working together. The other thing that I'm really good at is listening to your piece. And sometimes I understand what it's trying to be more than the author does. You may have an idea of what you think is you're doing, but another set of educated eyes, professional eyes, can sometimes say, you know what, the story's really doing this. Are you aware that that's what it's doing? Again, it's not about fixing it. It's about showing you some options, things you might want to consider. Then other things that get down more granular are tone. Is your tone formal and then suddenly becomes informal, and suddenly you want consistency? Unless one character is formal and one's informal, that's fine. But sometimes authors just kind of forget about that, forget about their language, and don't look at the clarity of just the actual sentence structure. Now, some of that's more copy editing, but as a developmental editor, I will look at that and show you a page and say, notice that this writing's kind of sloppy. So you might want to work on tightening it. You might want to work on varying your sentence length. Read your work out loud, listen to the rhythm of it. So I'll bring those things to your attention. And then very often after a developmental edit, a writer will choose to continue working with me as a coach. It doesn't have to be often. It can be, you might just want to show me a chapter a month later, or a page, or whatever. And so that's a way to continue working together, but some people don't. They just go on and they revise. So I haven't mentioned plot, structure, because when you look at all those other things, does it start in the right place? Are your characters well developed? Are you handling summary and scene? Is scene moving the story along? The structure grows organically out of those things. And so I tend to look at structure or talk about structure last when I'm doing a developmental edit, and give suggestion for ways it may be a little bit better structured, but I'm telling you, it usually grows out of all those other elements. It'll take care of itself. With another set of eyes saying, look at this and let's see if we can shape it a little bit, better, more effectively. So that's what I do. And again, how you choose your developmental editor, and I really strongly recommend, it's worth it. And actually, in terms of money, a lot of people charge a lot. I charge by the hour, and I'm fast, which helps because I'm looking at the big picture. Actually, a copy edit costs considerably more than a developmental edit, because you're looking at every word, every sentence. Every developmental edit is a big picture look at how to develop your piece so that it's stronger, holds together better, and is more powerful and effective. So if that's something that you're interested in talking about, I give complimentary chats with authors, 45-minute chats, and we can set one up. You can write a comment below, or you can just go to my website, wingedhorsewritingstudio.com, and there's a contact form. We could set it up, because it matters that you choose someone that you're on the same page with, that you feel comfortable with. It's not just about the professional connection, choosing someone who is good at what they do, but also choosing someone that you can relate to, that you trust, and that you're kind of on the same page. So that's developmental editing as I understand it. I've been doing it for a very, very long time, decades, worked with a lot of authors. So again, if you're interested, let me know, and I'll talk to you again soon. Happy writing. Take care.